The stakes are at an all-time high. 1 week to qualify to the greatest tournament in world football, the 2025 African Cup of Nations. We're going to discuss, preview all of the matches, all of the major storylines on this episode of the African Football Roundup on the African Five-A-Side podcast. Let's go. So, as we've said, it's time for the final international break of the 2025 Afcon qualifiers. 8 of the 24 spots for the Afcon have already been taken. Many of the others are already close to being locked up. B teams are 1 point away, 2 points away, and virtually, near, not guaranteed, but they've almost locked it up. But I wanted to almost go group by group and review all of the groups and look at the key matchup in each group and then give a prediction on who's going to qualify out of the groups. And what I found as I was, looking into the storylines, as I was looking into the tables, is that there's really three kinds of teams that will be affecting these qualifiers. There are teams that have qualified already. So you can think of Algeria, Morocco, Burkina Faso, Senegal. The teams that qualified, will they even try this window? Are they going to, for example, bring in a bunch of new players and experiment with different personnel or different tactics? Are they just going to give their players a rest and leave them at home? Do they feel like they haven't done enough and they're going to bring the exact same squad of 23 and stick with the exact same tactics to try and hammer out any kinks that they have in their playing system? The second kind of team is a team that's battling to qualify. And here you really have, across the spectrum, teams that need to get a perfect 6 points out of 6 in November to qualify. And some teams just need 1 point out of 6 to qualify. Some, maybe they don't need to do anything. They can lose both matches and still qualify. And then finally, the third kind of team that we have is teams that are eliminated, obviously. And like the teams that are qualified, here we can also ask about their level of motivation. Are they focused? Do they care about the results? A team like Libya, for example, off the top of my head, they only have 1 point. They felt like they were hard done by the Confederation of African Football when they were forced to forfeit the match after they did an emergency diversion of the Nigerian plane. You know the story, and if you don't know the story, go back on this YouTube channel or on this podcast channel and listen to the reaction that we did of that entire incident. But a team like Libya, who's gone through coaching changes, personnel changes, they're bottom of the group, have zero chance of qualifying. Are they going to be motivated to even try? So these are all the things that were swirling in my head as I started to break down the group by group analysis. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. In Group A, we have Madagascar, Tunisia, Gambia, Comoros. The first match today is going to be Madagascar versus Tunisia at home. At Madagascar. Gambia versus Comoros. Gambia is the home team. And then the second match today is Tunisia versus the Gambia, and then Comoros versus Madagascar. Now, this Group A, in my opinion, is the most interesting group because it's the only group where all four teams still have a very realistic chance of qualifying. And credit to us, I like to sometimes toot my own horn. I think we predicted that in the preview because these teams were really not so far apart in terms of recent heritage, in terms of recent momentum. Um, all of them, I think, have just qualified for the first AFCONs in the last 5-6 years since it came to an expanded format. All of them are very respected on the African continent now. Only Tunisia really separated itself with its past as, having won an AFCON and having been really a powerhouse of African football since the 1960s. But anyways, as close as it is, when you look at the table, one thing that really jumps out to me almost immediately is that the teams are just about scoring one goal and conceding one goal per game. So you're not getting very exciting matches. You're getting 0-0, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-0, those kinds of matches. And so I expect that kind of trend to continue into these last two match days in November. And I expect both of these or all four of these matches to be very, very tight. For me, the key match is going to be Gambia versus Comoros on Friday evening because the Gambia, in my opinion, need to win that match. It's a must win for them. It's not a must win for Comoros. Comoros can draw, and they're already sitting pretty in second place. And then they're going to host Madagascar in the final match at home. But the Gambia, they're not even playing at home. And we interviewed the Gambian coach on this channel, Johnny McKinstry, and he said he hoped that by this window in November, um, they would be playing at home in Banjul or in Bakau. That won't be the case. They're playing against Comoros in Morocco. And then they have to travel to Tunisia to play Tunisia in Tunisia. And as well as Comoros did against Tunisia in October, they took 4 points out of a possible six. I don't think that the Gambia is going to be able to win that match in Tunisia. And so they have to win this match against Comoros to leapfrog them and fall into second place. So for me, that is the key match. Things should be almost determined by the match on Friday, November 15th in the evening. If the Gambia can beat the Comoros, then they should advance. If Comoros manages to beat the Gambia or even draw, I think we're going to have Tunisia and Comoros to advance. And that is going to be my official prediction, Tunisia and Comoros to advance. Tunisia go into this international window having fired their coach, Fawzi Benzerti. He's a coach that we spoke about on this channel before, a legend of African football. He's been coaching for several decades. He's a coach that coached, the big four clubs in Tunisia. He coached in Morocco for Wydad Casablanca. He coached the Libyan national team. He's coached everywhere. He's won everything. He's usually like the spare wheel for the Tunisian Federation. Whenever they need him as an emergency, they'll throw him in. But him losing to Comoros and then drawing with Comoros, picking up 1 point out of a possible six in October, I think that really ruffled some feathers in the normalization committee of Tunisia. And as a result, he's been disposed of. And they bring in Qais Yaqoubi. Qais Yaqoubi, he's a good coach. He has experience in the Gulf in Tunisia and Algeria, but he's not really his experience is not at the biggest of clubs, just maybe one stint at Club Africain, maybe 15 to 20 years ago. And he's similar to some of these recent Tunisian coaches like Mandar Kbeir, Jalal Qadri, these local domestic coaches that are, don't get me wrong, I have absolutely nothing wrong with local domestic coaches. On the contrary, I want them to coach their national teams, but exceptional ones that have done big things. And Kees Yacoubi, as much as he is a good coach, I just don't know if he's an exceptional coach. He really just seems like somebody that the Tunisian Federation is throwing in there because, again, he probably knows a lot of people in the Tunisian Federation. He knows some of these players, and at the same time, he's not going to cost a lot of money. And that's really the key ingredient here is that the Tunisian Federation cannot pull the trigger on a great coach until it gets its federation sorted out. They're still in a normalization committee. When they become the Tunisian Federation under normal circumstances, that's when they can hire a coach maybe for 10, 20, $30,000 a month, and that's when they can start to target some of the bigger names in African football. But anyways, looking at Yaqub's squad list, Yaqubi, sorry, he left a lot of the older heads at home, like Youssef Msakni, like Ferjani Sassi, like Dylan Braun, and he's relying a lot more on the domestic players. I think personally that it's still incomprehensible that he leaves out a player like Ilyas Hashouri on the wing. But overall, I think his list is okay, especially the goalkeepers, the defenders, the midfielders. It's the attack that I think people have a lot of questions about. But even then, Tunisia do not have, a huge reservoir of attacking players that they can call on in the first place. I think Tunisia is building a new generation. That there's a kid at Esperance Tunis who I included in the next gen for The Guardian. He's just 17 years old. He made his debut for Esperance Tunis this week, and he scored a wonder goal. His name is Kousei Asha. I think he could be a big player for Tunisia in the future. I think the right back, Raed Bouchniba, can be a solid player for Tunisia in the future. The goalkeeper, Amanullah Mimish, same thing. So they have like these pieces all over the place. Hannibal Mejbri, of course, for Burnley. But the question is, can they build that new generation in time for the next Afcon or the next World Cup? I don't know. Who knows? But that's going to be one of the main challenges. Finding their coach, building the new generation. But I do predict that they're going to qualify. The Gambia had a good October window. Like I said, they beat Madagascar, but they need to beat that Comoros in that first match. That is the key for them. Johnny McKinstry speaking about, the October window said we created a lot of opportunities, but we need to be more clinical. And he told me the same thing when I interviewed him, I think in September or August. And look, at a certain point, for as long as I can remember, the Gambia have always played well, but they always needed to be more clinical. So that's not something, in my opinion, that's gonna convince a lot of Gambians to say, yeah, we just need to be more clinical, as if it's like, just the salt on top of the dish. No, that's like part and parcel of the problem. Um, the Gambia, their advantage, in my opinion, against Comoros is that they have better individual players. Musa Baro, Yankuba Minte, who as you know, I'm very, very high on. Is he fit though? He's missed the last few weeks of play for Brighton. But if he's fit, I expect him to really take his responsibility, like they say in French, and to help the Gambia qualify because he's really been top notch every time he's played for them. So yeah, now's the time for these individual players like Barrow, Minte, Kohli, Darbo to step up because I really believe that on paper, the Gambia have a better, more talented side than Comoros. Even if Comoros maybe are more balanced and have overall higher quality throughout the 23 players, but they just brought in this really great midfielder who's playing in Portugal, Zaidou Youssef, very complete midfielder. But when you talk about like if you're gonna pick one, or even let's say if you're gonna pick three players from the two squads, I think maybe all three of them would be Gambian. So yeah, Comoros have a better chance in my opinion. They have an easier game plan. They in this kind of tight group where teams are averaging a goal a game and conceding a goal a game, it's very likely to have a draw, and that would favor Comoros, who by the way are doing also very good in FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Um, but if we can see something spectacular from individual players, the Gambia should go through alongside Tunisia. I'm not giving a lot of chance to Madagascar here, but they are also in with a shout. Let's move on to Group B, where we have Lesotho, Central African Republic, Gabon, and Morocco. Morocco have obviously already qualified. That was the case from the beginning of this group. Um, and so I don't think, I talked about already qualified teams and maybe judging their level of motivation. That's not going to change for Morocco because they're qualified from the very first match day. So I think throughout this process, they've been just experimenting with personnel and tactics. So that's nothing's going to change for them. Gabon are comfortably second here, but they have the toughest matches. Central African Republic have to be perfect to catch Gabon. They need to get all 6 points, but I actually think it's possible because Gabon plays Morocco first in the first match in the fifth match day in Franceville in Gabon, so at least it's at home. But they just drew with Lesotho in the exact same venue in October, so I don't know how much home field advantage is for Gabon. So let's go ahead and say Morocco probably beats Gabon, even though they're playing the match in Gabon. The last match day, oh my goodness, there's a huge key match. Central African Republic hosts Gabon and Morocco. And here it's like, wow, like Central African Republic. So they just need to beat Lesotho in the fifth match day, and then in the sixth match day, beat Gabon. And for me, that's very, very possible. Is it probable? No, but it's not unrealistic. I think Morocco and Gabon will advance, just basing it on odds. But Central African Republic are not far off. I think they have a very, very good chance to, you know, do the improbable and qualify their nation to the first African Cup of Nations in first time in a very long time. So yeah, nothing changes for Morocco. They're still bringing in all their stars. Ashraf Hakimi, Brahim Diaz, Nusayr Mazraoui have all been called up. I still continue to expect them to experiment tactically like Walid Regragui was doing in our most recent video, the film study. To avoid any drama, Gabon could beat Morocco at home, and then that's game over. They've qualified, or they could draw with them. Um, and Central African Republic, yeah, they need to focus on the first 3 points against Lesotho and then worry about playing Gabon back in Morocco. So it's a tough international break for Central African Republic in October. They lost both matches to Morocco and they were beaten pretty thoroughly. But they need to pick themselves up by the bootstraps, try to do something historic here. And I think if they can, the drama will make it feel really, really good. If they can do it, there should be huge celebrations on the streets of Bangui. So predicting Morocco and Gabon, but keep an eye on Central African Republic because if they win that first match and Gabon lose against Morocco, they have everything on the line for the sixth and final match day on November 18th. Group C, Botswana, Mauritania, Cape Verde, and Egypt. Egypt are through on a perfect record, 12 points, 10 goals for, 0 goals against. I don't even know if I wrote those notes correctly. That's incredible. Um, the surprise is Botswana, who's in second place with 6 points, above the round of 16 and quarterfinalists of the previous Afcon, Cape Verde and Mauritania, who have 3 points each. Um, so yeah, immediately looking at this, what is the motivation for Egypt? They haven't called up Mohamed Salah, they haven't called up Mohamed Abdel Mun'im, but they still have Omar Marmoush, Mahmoud Trezeguet, Mohamed Mustafa from Nantes, Marwan Atiyah, who in our opinion was the man of the match uh, in the October, or I say the man of the October international window in midfield. So the star players are going to be called up. My question is, are they going to travel or are they going to stay in Egypt? Are they going to go to Cape Verde for that first match? And if they don't, then Cape Verde has a little bit of an advantage here. Cape Verde, as we know, had great AFCON, but their backs are really up against the wall. They need to be perfect, really. They need to not just play pretty football, because we know they can do that. Um, Really, what determines the success of a good coach is results. And Bubista, we know, is a good coach at getting them to play pretty. But here, Cape Verde needs to get a win, particularly in that first match against Egypt, in my opinion. Botswana are in a very good position though. Hats off to Didier Gomez da Rosa. We know him on the continent. He's coached practically everywhere in different clubs and national teams. And I think we should speak a little bit more against them. So a little bit more about them. So if they qualify, we'll probably bring on a Botswana journalist to come and speak about their national team, because hey, them qualifying to the second Afcon would be a pretty cool story in its own right. Um, so yeah, Emir Abdou in Mauritania is on a high salary, but he has to prove himself here. He's not playing against Egypt now. He's playing just against Mauritania and Cape Verde. So now's the chance for him to pick up one or maybe two important victories. So everyone that isn't Egypt in this group is still alive. There's all to play for. I think Botswana are the slight favorites, and I think they have that kind of momentum going for them. But really, Mauritania, or particularly Cape Verde, could also qualify. Just needs a big win at home first. So key match for me is Botswana versus Mauritania in the fifth match day. That match is going to take place on Friday in the early afternoon, because if Botswana can beat Mauritania at home, they have 9 points. They've already qualified. And my predictions are going to be Egypt and Botswana to progress. Group D, we're rolling along now. How long have we been going for? Let me see. Already 15 minutes. All right, let's try to go a little bit faster. Group D is the group I've been speaking about: Rwanda, Libya, Benin, and Nigeria. Um, Nigeria, they just need a draw to go through after the Libya debacle when they were awarded 3 points, and that ruled out Libya and practically qualified Nigeria. Benin and Rwanda are battling for second place here. The toughest match, in my opinion, is Benin versus Nigeria in Benin. Benin had a resurgent run in 2019 when they made it to the quarterfinals of the Afcon. They knocked out Morocco, if you remember, in the round of 16. And during this qualification campaign, they've won both of their matches at home. And their coach, Gernot Rohr, is the former coach of Nigeria. And I think he's going to want to win this one as a matter of pride. Libya just have 1 point. And again, will they give up and reward Rwanda with 3 points away from home? Uh, what is their level of motivation? I really don't know there. But in my opinion, individual professional players, they're always going to want to give their best, because they know what they put out on the pitch, that's their portfolio, that's their resume. People are going to judge them on that. And so I don't think a football player is ever going to go on the pitch and want to throw a match. But will they be hyper motivated? Probably not. Um, so I think it's going to be an interesting window. I think Benin is in a good place. They do have to play Nigeria, but they're playing at home. They have all that motivation, of their coach being the former coach and everything. They have some very interesting young attacking talent. I think it's going to be Nigeria and Benin that go through. Rwanda, I think, have done well, but I just don't know if they have the quality to beat Nigeria or even to beat Libya. I think the best they could do is maybe get a draw in that fifth match day against Libya at home, um, and then probably lose to Nigeria away from home. One thing that I would say in Group D before I move on is that I really want to see Nigeria have a good window. Um, I want them to attack. I want them to score 3 or 4 goals. You have the next CAF player of the year, in my opinion, Adamola Lookman. You have Victor Osimhen. You have uh, Boniface. You have all of these players, Moses Simon, whatever. There's like, you know the quality of your squad better than I do. Very, very good attacking squad. I want to see them let loose and score 3 or 4 goals. I'm sick of, 1-0 victories, 2-1, something like that. Like, I want to see them dominate a team from minute 0 to minute 90. That would make me feel a lot better about Nigeria. Group E, Algeria is through and Equatorial is through unless there's some kind of spectacular collapse from Equatorial Guinea, but I don't anticipate that happening. So Algeria and Equatorial Guinea. Group F, same thing. Angola is through, and I'm pretty much expecting Sudan to go through. One thing I would say about Group F, because Ghana is in that group, Thomas Partey has been dropped for the Black Stars, and Mohamed Kudus is no longer the captain. I thought that was very interesting. I think they're moving the armband to Jordan Ayew. So it's one of those things where after the October window where they failed spectacularly against Sudan, it was either you change the personnel or you change the culture, and sometimes you have to change the culture to change the personnel, and vice versa. Yeah, sometimes you have to change the personnel to change the culture. Um, but there are other ways you can do it, and maybe like dropping one symbolic player, maybe changing the captain's armband. Maybe that's one way of changing the culture around the Black Stars. I don't know. They haven't given up on Otto Addo yet. I think they're gonna judge him on this window. Like he said, Ghana is not mathematically eliminated yet. But chances are not high at all. I would definitely not even bet $1, not even put $1 on on the chances of Ghana getting out of this group. Group G, we have Zambia, Cote d'Ivoire, Chad, and Sierra Leone. Excuse me, I'll take a sip. So, um, Cote d'Ivoire practically qualified. And the second place battle is between Zambia and Sierra Leone. This group is intriguing to me. Um, because the way it sets up. So Zambia has to host Cote d'Ivoire, and then Sierra Leone hosts Zambia. So basically, what happens is if Zambia can get a result against Cote d'Ivoire, which is going to be obviously very difficult, the African champions, then they're safe practically. They need to do that to relieve the pressure. Because if they don't do that, they have to travel to Sierra Leone for that second match. And there, man, I think Sierra Leone can definitely beat Zambia in Monrovia. They just beat Cote d'Ivoire in Monrovia. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Zambia. The thing is, Zambia did beat Cote d'Ivoire in 2023 Afcon qualifiers. I think they beat them 3-0 at home. But in that match, I remember watching that match and being very impressed with that attacking trio of Lamek Banda, Patsandaka, and Fashion Sakala. The problem for Zambia, the Copper Bullets, Patsandaka and Fashion Sakala are not in this current Copper Bullets side. Fashion Sakala has sort of fallen out with Avram Grant and struggled with some injury. And Patsandaka, I think, is also injured for this match. So, hey, are you going to have the kind of quality to beat Cote d'Ivoire in that first match or to get a result in that first match? I don't know. So yeah, Sierra Leone can get a head start by beating Chad, but if not, they just have to wait for Zambia to come to Monrovia and spank them there, and we could see Sierra Leone back at the Afcon. Group H, we have Ethiopia, Tanzania, Guinea, and DRC. This is a group I haven't paid much attention to. I need to do better watching East African football, like some of my friends do. But it's an interesting group because for me, DRC, first of all, hats off to Sebastian de Sabre. 12 points. They've already qualified. And you can see in his squad list that he's not taking anything for granted. He called up practically the exact same squad. All of your starters have been called up for DRC. He's not worried about experimenting with different players or different tactics. The only exception is Gael Kakuda, who's been dropped just because he's injured. And they brought in Tipi Mazembe winger Oscar Kabwit, who we talk about a lot on this channel for Mazembe, one of the most, in my opinion, exciting wingers in African football. Um, really, Tanzania, in my opinion, they have to beat Ethiopia away from home in Addis to have a great chance of qualifying. The problem with Guinea is really unpredictable. I think they can win a lot of matches and they can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. And Guinea have made a coaching change, and that really makes things even more unpredictable. Um, they brought in Michel Dussuyer because he knows Guinean football, whatever that means. For me, it's a very uninspiring coaching appointment. But what they do have going for them is Cyril Girassi, who, in my opinion, is on the brink of being world class. He can win or change a match on his own, as he showed us in October when he scored a first half hat trick, I believe, against Ethiopia. So, um, look, for me, the match to pay attention to is Tanzania versus Guinea on November 18th, the sixth and final match day, because that could be a battle for second place. But in my opinion, DRC and Guinea are going to go through just because I think Guinea have a lot more quality man to man than Tanzania do. Group I is Eswatini, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, and Mali. Again, not a group that I paid a lot of attention to. Mali and Mozambique are leading the group, I think, with 8 points each. Ibrahim Kone and Kamori Doumbia are back from Mali, who started life under their new coach, Tom Saintfiet, quite decently. By the way, they're wearing their new jerseys, in my opinion, best jerseys in world football. And Mali, probably, if you take an average of their jerseys or their shirts over the last 10 years, probably the best jerseys in world football. Mozambique have also been very good under their coach Chiquinho Conde. I voted both them and their coach, did they make the top five? They may not have made the top five, but they're both in the CAF awards. And I remember looking at their records, really admiring what they've done for the last 24 months. And really, Mozambique should be okay as long as they don't lose to Mali in the fifth match day. Um, that's going to be an important match. As long as they don't lose, if they win, they'll be fine. If Mali wins, Mali's automatically through. Um, but really, the most important thing for Mozambique is at least draw that match. You draw that match, you have 9 points, and then you have to travel to Guinea-Bissau, who's going to be hot on your tail. But with 9 points, you should be safe, really. And Mali should be safe anyways because their last and final match is against Eswatini at home. So I'm not worried about them even if they lose to Mozambique in the fifth match day. Cameroon and Zimbabwe in Group J are pretty much through. No real remarks to make about this group apart from the fact that Cameroon have practically named the same squad except for some midfielders, Olivier Ncham and Pierre Koundé. They've moved those central midfielders out for two newer options, Wiliti Yunusa and Arthur Vom. Carlos Baleba for Brighton. Everybody's been paying attention to him. He's been incredible in midfield. So if you look at their midfield, Baleba, Zembo Anguissa, and who's that third midfielder? I think that's what they're looking for. If they can just find that third midfielder, they might have one of the best midfields on the African continent. And again, I've said this for 2 years now. In my opinion, Cameroon starting 11 is definitely a top five starting 11 in African football, maybe a top three starting 11 in African football. But good for them. I think they finally have some stability. After that whole Samuel Eto'o and Marc Brice episode, which was, a shame for Cameroon as a country and for the football in that country as well. But I think it seems like everybody's behind Marc Brice now because of his good results. And it seems like, the production line of talent in Cameroon hasn't stopped despite all the controversy, and they're still producing great players. Group K, we have, I think South Sudan, Uganda are pretty much through as long as South Africa can beat South Sudan, which they should. I saw that they're going to be playing that match in Cape Town. And I saw, I think, who was it? Was it Danny Jordan that said, we want the fans to come out en masse? Um, and on our last episode, when we talked about Stellenbosch and the Cape region, Lorenz was telling me that, it's not really a football region. So I think that's why he was making those remarks. But it would be cool for, South African fans to come out and really support their team because, again, their national team has been a top three national team since the Afcon throughout this year. They've been very, very good, playing very great football. And they could have put this away when they played Congo in the fourth match day. They drew that match 1-1. But I expect them either to beat Uganda in the fifth match day and get this over with, or if not, then just defeat South Sudan handily in the sixth match day. I don't see Congo Brazzaville making a comeback here. And finally, Group L, Burkina Faso and Senegal are already through. Just wondering how they'll do in that match. But it's too early to tell. I think one thing that I didn't finish my research for this video, but I'm just curious about the Senegalese coaching situation. I don't believe they've come to a resolution yet. Last I heard, Hervé Renard was a candidate, but now he's not there anymore. Pap Thiaw, who was the interim manager in October, I think he's going to continue in this month of November. And then Omar Daf, I've heard a lot about as well. Omar Daf, the Senegalese coach who's coached in the French Ligue 2 for 4 years now, um, is another one that I've heard a lot about. Habibé apparently was closer to European clubs than the Senegalese national team. But I think these are questions we're gonna get the answers to probably in maybe a few months' time. Maybe I think after this international window, they're already qualified. They don't have to worry about anything. I think just as long as they give the new coach enough time prior to the March World Cup qualifiers, then that should be okay. So an appointment in January should be good in my opinion. So yeah, let's try to speed through those. That's the preview of the 2025 AFCON qualifiers. Those are the notes I made. Let me know which matches that you're gonna have an eye on. Who are you most looking forward to? Who are you rooting for? Uh, Put it in the comments below. I'll be responding in as much thorough detail as I can. This week, by the way, I was also invited to vote on the 2024 CAF Awards. So as I mentioned in a previous video called "Who Should Win It," I said that usually I'm invited to vote every single year. This year was no different. I was invited to vote for the 2024 CAF Awards. I'm always very honored and privileged to vote for those awards because, like I said, I feel like people respect my input, and that means a lot to me. Um, I can tell you that I did a lot of research. It took me 3 or 4 days to to compile all the statistics, to read, to watch, to make sure that my vote was as accurate as could be. I was asked by CAF not to share who I voted for until after the CAF Awards. So once the CAF Awards have finished, I will explain my choices. And by the way, they told me that this year they might make voting public. So whoever you journalists have voted for, you will be able to see which journalist voted for who. And that way you could spam us and criticize us and tell us we're good for nothing online. But no, but seriously, once that's done, I'll be able to take a look at it in December and explain how, all of my choices. I still have my notes intact and I'll leave them there for a month from now. One final thing, we have these 7 days. I'm going to try to cover it as in-depth as possible. After the international break is over, I'm going to do a recap, overlooking the entirety of these 3 months and what happened and what were the major storylines. But then we're almost into the CAF Champions League, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I know you all are too. So exciting times ahead. Enjoy these last 2 match days of the Afcon qualifiers because, like I said, CAF Champions League is coming up, and then really, then the machine is rolling all the way until February, March into the World Cup qualifiers. So, yeah. As always, thank you for listening. Really, really appreciate it. This channel is slowly but steadily growing, so please send it to your friends. If you have friends that like African football, tell them to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe on YouTube, give me a 5-star on the audio platforms. All of that would really, really, really help us. So yeah, without any further ado, I'll let you guys go for now, and we'll catch up probably in a few days' time as we start recapping the 5th match day of the Afcon qualifiers. We'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak soon. Peace.